Algeria has discussed an increase in gas supplies to Italy to compensate for a possible decline from Russia. The move was made known on Monday when Italian Foreign Minister Luigi Di Maio visited the North African country. The strengthening of bilateral cooperation, in particular to meet the needs of European energy security in light of the conflict in Ukraine, were part of the talks. Russia launched an invasion of Ukraine last week, sending shockwaves internationally and triggering a battery of Western economic sanctions against Moscow. On Sunday, Algerian state-owned hydrocarbon giant Sonatrach said it was ready to provide more gas to Europe. Algeria is the second supplier of gas to Italy behind Russia.
South Africa has recorded 0 COVID-19 deaths in the last 2 days for the first time since May 2020, the health authorities confirmed Tuesday. COVID has hit South Africa harder than any other country on the continent, making the drop in deaths all the more remarkable. The National Institute for Communicable Diseases made the announcement in its daily tally of coronavirus cases, sparking cautious optimism among health authorities. The last time the country reported no deaths over a 48-hour timescale was on May 12, 2020. At least 80% of the populous province Gauteng has already been infected with COVID-19, a statistic believed likely mirrors the entire country. Zimbabwe, Namibia, Angola, Mozambique and Eswatini also reported no COVID deaths in the last 24 hours, although those neighboring countries have less developed health surveillance system. South Africa has suffered nearly 100,000 COVID deaths and more than 3.6 million cases. Health practitioners attribute the decline in deaths to both the rollout of vaccines and to the impact of past waves of infection.
In Tunisia, legislation allows married women or single women undergoing treatment or preparing to undergo an act that may affect their ability to procreate, including chemotherapy, to preserve their eggs. But a case with singer Nermin Sfar has triggered a debate in the country where women want the liberalization of this practice. The demand has existed for a long time, but it has increased in the last, I would say 5 or 6 years. The demand has become a daily occurrence. The process consists of taking the eggs, freezing them and storing them in liquid nitrogen for a later pregnancy. The storage is fixed by law to 5 years. For 2 years, 40-year-old local TV columnist and director of a news website, Neema Chemiti, had wanted to freeze her eggs.
The unfair legislation concerning freezing eggs doesn't correspond to the evolution of women and their responsibilities. Tunisian women are prime ministers, CEOs, ministers. Many women work nowadays and their priorities have changed. The age of marriage is getting older, and this is why we describe the law on egg freezing as a monopoly on women and discriminatory decision against single women.
Since 2014, nearly 1,000 patients have frozen their eggs, of which more than 80% were single in Tunisia.
Social media has given women a chance to speak out since quite a while now. It's true that we started talking about sexual violence in the 1993s in feminist organizations. But the scale of this debate and the liberation began with social media and the internet in particular.
Some internet users consider this issue secondary in a country in political and economic crisis, but others stressed its importance in a nation that is a pioneer in the Arab world in terms of women's rights. As more and more people scramble to flee Ukraine, several reports have emerged of some non-white residents, including Nigerians, Indians and Lebanese, getting stuck at borders. Unlike Ukrainians, many non-Europeans need visas to get into neighboring countries. Embassies around the world were scrambling to assist their citizens get through chaotic border crossings out of Ukraine. The soldiers who are there and the other security agents, they tell you, you are going to stay here. You are fleeing the war, stay here. You're going to fight with us. You're not going to leave, especially you black people.
The Ukrainians were let in, and the foreigners, they were segregated to one side, regardless of racism.
These are the black community here.
Videos shared on social media allegedly showed African students being held back from boarding trains out of the country. The African Union in Nairobi said on Monday that everyone has the right to cross international borders to flee conflict.
Plastic pollution is on the agenda at the UN Environmental Assembly meeting in Nairobi this week. Peru and Rwanda have come up with a proposal that is calling for a full-spectrum approach to plastic pollution. The proposal calls for the creation of an internationally legally binding agreement covering all stages of the plastic life cycle and by adopting a circular economic approach to plastics. The request by Rwanda and Peru, which is in line with the full life cycle approach to managing plastic pollution, can yield positive results if manufacturers and retailers are held accountable for reducing and recycling plastic packaging. It will not take long to win the war on plastic wastes. Environmentalist Wanjira Maathai is the daughter of the late Kenyan Nobel Peace Prize laureate Wangari Maathai and Vice President and Regional Director for Africa at the World Resource Institute.
We must celebrate what Rwanda is trying to do because we know that on the continent, Rwanda continues to lead with respect. They were the first, I think, country to ban single-use plastics and keep, most of us followed later, keeping our environment clean. It is a country that is got credibility with respect to this agenda.
Claude Beshensenge, a manager at the Rwanda Agroplastic Factory, says people also need to take responsibility for their actions and not discard litter carelessly. People throw plastic waste in the fields and elsewhere in nature, and it causes problems. We need to change the behavior of these people so that they don't scatter with plastic everywhere. I think this will reduce the risk of damaging the environment and make it easier to collect them for plastic waste recycling. A recent report commissioned by the Worldwide Fund for Nature, also known as WWF, projects that plastic pollution in the world ocean could quadruple by 2050.